Back here with our buddy Matt George. First time in a couple of weeks. Glad to have our man, my fellow Disney adult, with us here.
So proud of you.
Thank you. I thought you and Kyle and Katie would be happy with my Christmas display there of Disney plush toys.
Speaking of, real quick, just want to give a shout out to my cousin Isaiah, who his girlfriend she passed away. Dominique Brown, I guess she was like a major Disney influencer.
Okay.
She passed away last week. And I just knew her as Dominique. I didn't know she's like a big Disney influencer. Like she would go to the park and stuff like that all the time and all that. I was like, damn. And she passed away to food allergy. That's terrible.
Well, that's not as fun as me becoming a Disney adult.
Well, no, but the Disney, no,
so let's talk about Kings now, I guess.
The Disney people were mourning this week.
Mood killer Kenny Caraway.
I guess
glad to be here, guys.
Fans will be mourning if they lose in New Orleans. I don't know.
Hey, Matt, you're back for the first time in 2 weeks. My cousin died.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Okay. Well.
Disney, what do you guys call it? Disney adults?
I'm a Disney adult. Yeah. It's
I'll
official. I think I'm official. I am one.
You already got the next
I got the well, no, I don't have that, but I got the co-sign from the three that I know.
Oh, you were blessed.
I was blessed, yes. Okay. Kyle,
you're a made man now.
I think I am. It's happened. It has happened.
Matt, do you have your next trip planned to Disneyland?
No, but what we told my son after he went when he was 2, because he was free at the time, we told him when you turn 4, that will take you back to Disneyland. And so he reminds us probably daily, when I turn 4, I'm going back to Disneyland. So we still have till August of next year, but we're already financially saving up because it costs your left leg now to go to Disney.
And that's a good thing to point out to my partner here. My first trip to Disneyland was supposed to set up our trip to Disneyland. So we'll see. That'll be the real sign off if I'm a Disney adult, if that happens.
Where's my invite?
Aren't they the last year they're free is 3 years old?
I thought it was 2. I thought until they're 2 years old, or until they'll turn 3. Once they turn 3, they cost just as much as adults nearly. Kids discounts at Disney are a joke. It's like, here, $20 off. Have fun.
$20 off a $300 ticket.
Exactly.
Matthew, we've seen the Kings win a couple of games here. We've seen the offense look a little bit different with Malik Monk in the starting lineup. Are you cautiously optimistic? Are you optimistic? Are you not believing? Like, where's your head at right now with the Kings?
I think things are starting to click. I think they're starting to figure things out. And when you put into perspective that, for example, the last game we saw was game 20 for DeMar DeRozan with the injuries that and it's pretty it's like a saying. It's probably not 100% accurate, but it takes about 20 games for someone to get comfortable. Well, there you go, game 20. And what I think we're seeing with DeMar DeRozan specifically and the Kings offense, in addition to shots falling, of course, which Mike Brown doesn't want us to hyper focus on, I think what I've noticed with DeMar is I think the Kings have gotten a whole lot more comfortable with this starting lineup of balancing when to go to DeMar and when to play off of Sabonis and when to let Fox cook and when to let Malik play in the pick and roll. Like, the Kings are doing less of one thing, which is DHO. And I think they're doing a better job of knowing, okay, let's feed DeMar in his spot here with 15 seconds on the shot clock and let him go to work and maybe do that 2 or 3 times a possession. All right, now let's have DeMar spread everything out and we'll go our 5-out offense and run a pick and roll here. Let's do a DHO here. I just think we're seeing a better overall balance on offense for the Sacramento Kings. And with the shots falling, that's what's been leading to a lot more of the success over this 4-game stretch. And again, what Mike Brown wants us to focus on defensively, while the Kings haven't been phenomenal by any means, over this 4-game stretch that they're 3-1, they're holding teams to 107 points per game. That would be like top 6 or top 7 in the league. And they're also holding teams to 35% from 3-point range, which I think is around top 10. And that's a 3% decrease on average from the 38% nearly that the Sacramento Kings are averaging from 3-point range. So the defense has made strides, and offensively they seem to be more comfortable. And that's what I attribute the this recent stretch too. And I do think, unfortunately, that this break came at the wrong time because I wanted them to keep playing games.
I looked at that like, oh man, for real? They really got like 2 games in like 11 days or something like that. It's like, oh man.
Because they don't play again until Monday after tonight.
And then they got 2 days off after that. Do you, Matthew, when you watch the Kings play in the last 5 games or so, do you see a difference in DeMar DeRozan's play? Like, do you see that people talk about him being a ball stopper or anything else like that? Does he look the same to you and they're just making shots? Or is he maybe making an effort to help the ball move a little bit more?
I think it would be unfair to say that DeMar's not doing anything different or anything better because I'm sure he is. I think it's the Kings are figuring out and DeMar's figuring out when to go to him versus when not to. Because sometimes it felt disjointed. Sometimes it felt like, okay, feed DeMar a lot here, and then they went away from DeMar over here, and then that would kind of lead to the ball stopping. And when DeMar got the ball in those spots, everybody else would kind of stand around and watch and go, all right, well, let's watch DeMar go to work and more than likely score. I just feel from what I've seen over these 4 games or so, 4 or 5 games, is DeMar is understanding where and when he's going to get the ball and when to look for it and when to demand it. But then when he's not getting the ball in those spots, he's still spreading out. He's taking his classic toe on the line, deep twos that if you just take freaking half a step back, DeMar, they'd be threes and you'd be a 3-point shooter, damn it. But he's incorporating himself in the offense when it's not running directly through him, which is exactly what you want from the guy, right? What you don't want him to do is just stand there and watch when the Kings aren't playing through him. And then you don't want the Kings to stand there and watch when they are playing through him. And I think both sides are getting a better understanding of how to play off of one another. And I think a huge element to this, and it's not a coincidence, Malik Monk being in the starting lineup too, I think has opened that up a little bit more as well. I think Malik Monk being in the starting lineup, it was the ace up Mike Brown's sleeve. It was the final card he had to play. If that didn't work, the Kings would be like, we got to make some serious trades or we got to punt because this is a disaster. But as we're seeing, it's not just guys Malik starting and being out there at the beginning of the first quarter, third quarter, and to close games like he always was. It's Malik getting starting level minutes. I mean, when he's playing 30 plus minutes, he's unstoppable. He's shooting over 50% from the field, around that from 3-point range, averaging like 23 points per game, 6 or 7 assists, even like 3 rebounds or something like what Malik is finally getting is the playing time that he deserves. And he's so impactful on the floor with whoever he's with. Forget starting, just the 30 plus minutes is what he's always needed to do. And you go back to the last 2 seasons, and that's never what Mike Brown has done. And that part was always perplexing, even more than the actual starting and having your name called to open up a game.
So at least a couple of these games that not all of them that Malik is taking his spot into that starting lineup. We've particularly the last 2 though. We've seen Kevin Huerter play really well in that sort of 6th man role, if you will. Kevin, it feels like is as vital to this plan as Malik Monk is.
100%. Absolutely. I mean, I think Kevin for Kevin, it's simpler. It's simplified. Coming off the bench and score. Like, that's it. Coming off the bench and score. You are going to play with some combination of starters and guys you're very familiar with. You're going to play a lot with Domas because Domas is out there, feels like damn near the entire game. You're going to play with DeMar. You're going to play with Fox. You're going to play with Monk. You're still going to, because Mike doesn't do, it's not like 5-man bench unit, 5-man starting unit, right? These guys are all staggered. And Mike has actually brought up, like, the reason why it's taken him so long to get Monk into this starting rotation is because he has this gap towards the end of the first quarter and the first couple minutes of the second quarter, and then same thing in the second half, where he feels like he just has like Keegan and Fox on the floor out of that starting unit and everybody else is out, and he's concerned about those minutes. Those are the minutes that I think Kevin Huerter becomes so important. But for Kevin, it's not, let me figure out how I fit. For Kevin, it's come in, get ball, shoot, score. And then, of course, he needs to make an impact outside of that, and he's been doing a good job. I think grabbing rebounds, dishing out assists. I think he's been pretty good with that all season long, even when he was in his funk. The days of Kevin Huerter not giving you anything if he's not making shots, I feel like for the most part are over, but you still need his shot making and you still need his scoring, especially with how bad the Kings have been shooting the basketball so far this season. So Kevin can come in, and this is not a great comparison. It's the same way that Mike compared Malik Monk to Manu Ginobili. Like, it's not a one-to-one comparison, but I look at Kevin Huerter's role and I think like bench Kyle Korver or Jamal Crawford. Now, Jamal is way more of a playmaker and just scoring off the dribble talent than Kevin Huerter is, but Jamal's job was to come in for the LA Clippers for years and just be a microwave. That's what I think Kevin Huerter's role is. And for a shooter, for a scorer, for someone like Kevin, who I know is pissed off to lose his starting spot and is hungry to prove that he's capable of earning it back, coming into a game and just having a green light sounds like something that'll give you confidence. And that's what we've seen from Kevin over these last handful of games. He's shooting with confidence, and his body language is more apparent than anybody else on the team. When Kevin Huerter has confidence, everybody in the building knows it. And you can tell not just by the way he shoots the basketball, by the way he moves off of the ball. So I love what Kevin is doing, and 100% he's essential to this whole thing working with that second unit.
Jesse asked a pretty good question earlier that I want to get your take on. He asked, can the Kings sustain a winning style of basketball if Keegan or Kevin aren't hitting on a particular day? And then take it a step further. If they're both off, can they win basketball games?
I think it depends on how great your starters are that given night. Because this starting lineup has the capability, like you could have 3 or 4 20-point scorers on a night from that starting lineup pretty easily. Unfortunately, we've seen the Kings have a number of nights where they've had 3 20-point scorers and they've lost because they're not getting anything else. So the way I've always looked at it is kind of changing the perspective. Not that Keegan and Kevin aren't incredibly important, because we know they are. In fact, I think the Kings are 6-1 in games where Kevin Huerter hits 3 or more threes, and they're 4-1 or 5-1 in games that Keegan Murray has hit 3 or more threes. So as much as Mike wants to say, like, it's not just the 3-point shooting, when their sharpshooters are hitting, this Kings team is nearly unbeatable. And it's not because the Kings are super reliant on the 3-point shot. It's simply because they now have that 3-level offensive ability that we thought they would have coming into the season. They're lethal at the rim with De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. They've got the best mid-range scorer in the league in DeMar DeRozan, and Fox ain't too bad himself. Then they have all this 3-point shooting. When their 3-point shots weren't going in, an opposing defense could just go in and go, okay, dare the Kings to beat us from 3. We're going to pack the paint and muddy things up and make things as difficult as possible. That's not that that's not the Kings changing their philosophy or being over-reliant on the 3. That's the defense going, we dare you to beat us. And the Kings it's been a successful, easy gamble every night for teams because the Kings have been just brick houses from 3-point range. Now we're starting to see that shot fall. We're starting to see defenses go, okay, we can't just gamble on this anymore. And what are we seeing more of? Fox getting downhill, the Kings scoring in the paint, the Kings attacking on all 3 levels, and defenses looking overwhelmed because they don't know how to stop that, because you can't stop that. If the Kings are going on all 3 levels, you cannot stop it. If you take away one level, the Kings are still very capable and can win games, but it massively hinders them. But going back to your question, KC, I think it all depends on the Kings' top 4. This team is extremely top heavy. If 2 of Fox, Sabonis, Monk, and DeRozan are on any given night, if 2 of them are on, you can win. If 3 of them are on, you probably will win. If all 4 of them are on, you absolutely 100% should win. Right? That's the way I look at it. The Kings are extremely top heavy, and everybody else, and I throw Keegan Murray into this, not as an insult to him, but as a reality of his position with this team this year. Everybody else is a role player. Play your role, contribute in the way that you can, but that top 4 is going to carry Sacramento.
You mentioned this. You've mentioned the 3 dropping a couple of times, Matt. You also made the reference to don't tell Mike it's just about the shots dropping. Why is that? Like, what is this? We all see it. We see the made 3 numbers being around 15, 16. Of course, it was at 22 after the ridiculousness of Doug McDermott at the end of the Utah game, but it was at a very good level before he went on that outburst. But Mike was adamant, this is not about making and missing shots. Why is that not the case?
I think to Mike, it's a mindset thing, because Mike is not willing to use that as an excuse for other areas of breakdown. We know how much of a defensive-minded coach Mike Brown is. to Mike, saying that it's just because the 3-point shot isn't dropping is brushing all the other issues under the rug, or at least from my understanding of hearing Mike talk and having the conversations with him. And I wasn't there for that press conference. I wasn't there. So I missed that, but I watched it back with everybody. I wasn't there for the 24 possession after possession after possession. In fact, the Kings game I go to, they score 141 points. So maybe I should just F off and stay out of the Golden One Center for the foreseeable future. That being said, I said F off because I know Jesse was talking about my F bombs earlier this week, so I'm trying to behave.
Well, that's not entirely your fault. It might have been my fault.
Anyway, I think what he doesn't want is the Sacramento Kings to themselves have the mindset, the organization to have the mindset of, if we're making threes, we're going to win. If we miss threes, we're going to lose. If it's fun for us in a talk show format to kind of sum it up as Kings make threes, they win. Kings miss threes, they lose. But what Mike doesn't want to happen is the Kings to get into that mindset. And then let's say they do turn their season around. Let's say they get into the playoffs again. And then they start the playoffs and they're shooting 1 of 11 from 3-point range in game 1 of the playoffs. They don't just want to go up. It's not our night. We lose this game because we're not hitting shots. In Mike's mind, the Kings are always focusing on controlling what they can control. And Mike wants, and this goes back to training camp, Mike wants this team to play in a way that is consistent. It's the possession after possession after possession thing. He wants the Kings to play the same way, regardless of if the shot is going in or not, regardless of the circumstances. Crash the glass the same way, get out and transition the same way, defend the same way, right? He wants this team to not take plays off, to play the same way and basically exhaust their opponent. Their opponent knows it's coming. They know it's never going to stop. And that kind of takes the wind out of their sails. And we've seen it recently in games like the Utah game. When the shot's falling, Utah, they look like they gave up. Like Lauri Markkanen didn't look even interested in trying to score over Keegan Murray by the end of that game. We've seen it a couple times over the last 3 wins that the Kings have had. So I think putting it all on shooting for Mike is like a cop-out. Like that's not it. Defensively, we need to be better. We know we can be better. We're holding ourselves accountable in that sense. Taking care of the basketball, we need to be better. We know we can be better. We're holding ourselves accountable in that sense. We can do all this with the shots not falling and win basketball games. Why? Because we've done it already a couple times this season. We need to learn how to do it more. I think that's Mike's overall point.
Do you agree with that? Because I don't necessarily agree with that. I understand what he's saying, and I understand striving to be more consistent on the defensive end, and that's what you want. But I think with this group and what we've seen so far this year, it is as simple as if they're making their shots, it's a completely different ball club. How do you feel about that?
See, I agree with Mike in the sense that this team can't just be live or die by the 3. They can't. Like, just no team can be live or die by the 3. I mean, even the Boston Celtics, they can defend, so they can shoot the ball 50, 60 times from 3-point range, because even if the shot's not going in, they can defend and they're good enough to get through it, right? What you said, KC, that I think is hitting the nail absolutely on the head is this group. That, to me, is what's more important. Not that you can't hold this roster to a higher standard and want them to improve defensively and become better, but you have a roster that is completely offensively driven, right? On top of that, you have a general manager who has built this roster, who every single time we've spoken with him publicly over the last couple of years, offense is what he's bringing up. Ever since the Kings were eliminated from the playoffs, and I'm not trying to draw a line in the sand by any means, and listen to me carefully, I'm not insinuating that there is any kind of issue whatsoever between Mike Brown and Monty McNair or the Kings coaching staff and the Kings front office. That is not the case whatsoever. But what I do think is there is a difference of philosophy. There's a rift. There's a disconnect, because every time we hear from Monty, it's offense needs to get back to what it was. Offense needs to improve. And you look at the moves he's made, offensively driven, not addressing the size issue, not addressing the perimeter defensive issue, offense. Every time we talk to Mike, it's, yes, our offense is important. And the Kings are always working on improving their offense. They're not just saying, whatever the offense, be damned, we're going to focus on the defensive end. But Mike is telling you, this is what it takes to actually win in this league. You have to be able to defend. You look at the Houston Rockets and their rise. That's on the back of this mindset and this attitude of, we're going to out-physical you, we're going to out-muscle you, and we're going to play defense. Look how they beat the Golden State Warriors the other night. It was like a 1990s basketball game of physicality and what was the final score? Like 91-90.
Mm-hmm.
So like Mike is using examples of the league of, plus he has more than enough experience in his time with the Warriors, with the Cavs, with the Lakers. He knows what it takes to win once you get there. Now, where I clap back at Mike is Mike, you haven't been able to get there again since your offense has dropped off. So maybe Monty has a point. But I also think Monty needs to do a better job of putting together a roster or giving Mike some of the pieces that he's looking for to execute his vision. It's the responsibility of a coach to build a game plan around the roster that you have. And he's done that, I think, excellently with Fox and Sabonis and DeMar and other guys on this roster. But I do think that there hasn't been the best job of getting Mike the pieces around the edges that Mike needs and that the Kings need to be more successful than they are and to address the clear issues that they have. The Kings are losing basketball games because they can't defend the three consistently. And now the Kings have been losing basketball games because they're not able to knock down the three consistently. So it's not one problem and it's not all on one person, but I think there is a disconnect between the front office and the coaching staff that needs to be addressed. And while I don't want to pick a side, if there's any side I lean towards, I trust Mike Brown and what he's saying works and needs to happen because I'm seeing it on the court every night versus Monty McNair, who's telling me the offense needs to get better. Like, we all know this, but there are also other issues that feel like they're just kind of going ignored.
Asking you to speculate, not report, just conversation here. You think everyone was on board for Devin Carter?
Ooh, I think Devin Carter is a player that on paper and in theory, Mike Brown will love. I think Mike Brown will love Devin Carter. But here's another part of the disconnect. Mike Brown's having a hard time finding playing time for all of his guards right now. Why? Because he has a log jam at that position. Keon Ellis is now working his way back into the rotation. There's heavy minutes expected for, of course, Fox and Malik Monk now, and Kevin Huerter's got to get out there. Whether it's because the Kings need him off the bench or they're trying to build his draft or his trade stock or whatever, they need Kevin Huerter out there right now. There's only so many minutes to go around. Keon Ellis is the next in line for him. Jordan McLaughlin isn't even playing at this point. So you're going to have a rookie come back in January off of shoulder surgery and expect him to make any kind of impact? Like, that's where I don't get it. Now, if you're bringing Devin Carter in because maybe there's a plan going forward and he's the fill-in and we don't know what the plan is of who the Kings feel comfortable of getting rid of from the guard standpoint, hey, maybe that makes sense. But what I feel like is happening, and it's not fair to Devin Carter, but it's the reality of the situation when you're on a team with winning expectations, is you had an opportunity to, I know there's always the conversation in the draft, best player available versus need, right? I think you had both sitting there right in front of you. In hindsight's 2020, but you had both sitting right there in front of you in Dalton Connect. You had both. You had a wing who could help you shoot and looks like one of the best players in the draft, and you didn't go for it. And you went for Devin Carter, a guard who could be good. We have no idea. But the reality is he is not contributing at all. And here you are in 12th place in the Western Conference. Even if you're only one game under 500 and you're only a couple games back from 5th place, whatever, there's still a billion teams between you and that 5th place spot. That's the reality of where you're at. So it's a results-driven league, and I just don't think that as much as I liked the moves that Monty made this offseason, and 100% I gassed up the DeMar DeRozan signing, and I thought this team would be better than they are, 100%. I still don't think Monty's work is done. And Mike is trying to do the best he can with what Monty has given him. And Mike is pretty much telling us through actions and words, it's not enough.
You know, the interesting thing about that, though, is it's almost like, man, like what more do you really need? Like, look at that starting five now, you know, and then you've got a guy like Huerter. You got, Jay Crowder, you got Keon Ellis coming off the bench. I mean, you got
Crowder's not playing. Like, Crowder's out. He's out of the rotation.
He is out of the rotation. But, and he might be matchup based, right, too. Like, it might be a situation with that. But, if I'm Monty, I'm like, man, how much more do you need? I'm not even asking you to be OKC. I'm asking you to be like a top 6 team. You've got Fox, Keegan, Monk, DeRozan, Sabonis. Like, that could be 100 points a game in itself with those type of guys. So, yeah, if I'm Monty, I'm gonna tell you, I'm looking. I'm gonna look. I'm gonna do my due diligence, but this group needs to be better than 12 and 13. You got enough to be better than 12 and 13.
I do agree with that. I do understand and agree with that to some extent. I do, though, think that one of the primary reasons why you're 12 and 13 is because you didn't address one of the primary issues from last season that should make you both nervous and hungry for revenge against the New Orleans Pelicans tonight. Like, you were bothered relentlessly by size, length, and athleticism that you had a significant lack of, and you didn't address it. Like, I know Jay Crowder's on the roster, Doug McDermott on the roster. Great. These are bigger, longer, taller guys. Okay, but they don't play. And they're arguably borderline NBA players who were sitting on their couches before the Kings finally brought them in. The Kings literally worked Jay Crowder out, decided not to go with him until they absolutely had to. And I like Jay Crowder, and I like the energy that he's brought. I like Doug McDermott, and it was awesome to watch him go crazy in the fourth quarter the other night. Fun, cool, great. But those are guys that I don't know if they'd be on a team if the Kings didn't call them up and bring them in. So it's Keegan Murray. That's it. So if I'm Mike and Monty tells me exactly what you said, Mike, what more do you need? I'm pointing at Keegan Murray and going, another one, not him, but another guy that looks like him that we know is an NBA player. Because Keegan is it. He is on an island. It is Keegan Murray's responsibility to handle all of responsibilities of a wing while also being the primary defender at times on guards and even switching onto the big every once in a while and knocking down threes at a pretty significantly high clip, plus crashing the offensive glass along with Domantas Sabonis. All of this is on one guy because the Kings and Mike Brown don't have a choice because there's nobody else built like Keegan on this team that we know is an NBA caliber player. So that's where I turn the table back on Monty and go, you are right. You've constructed an offensive roster that should absolutely be better than they are. But the reason why you're winning games and your offense is being negated at times is because defensively you've had this issue for the last 2 years and you haven't done anything to address it. And you've put it all on the shoulders of a third-year player who is making strides in those areas. Keegan has improved as a defender. Keegan has improved drastically as a rebounder this season. But we're not celebrating it as much as we feel like we should because Keegan Murray is shooting 30% from three-point range, and offensively is clearly having what he's doing on the defensive end is impacting his offense. So I think there's still work to be done on this roster. It's not all on one person. Mike certainly has to do a better job of adapting, and he's done some things with his rotation that are like, Mike, what are you doing? Yeah. But I also am a actions speak louder than words guy. And I think some of Mike's rotational choices, like Colby Jones being out there a handful of times, might as well be him turning to Monty in the tunnel if Monty is there, or I don't know where Monty is during a game, or Wes or whoever, and going, this is what I got. This is what you gave me. This is what I have to do, what I have to use. I'm looking for somebody to help me out. And Colby Jones is the guy, I guess, that you gave me to do that. So here we go.
It's so disturbing hearing Matt talk about, in theory, Devin Carter, that's a Mike Brown guy. I'd be goddamned if we didn't say the same thing about Chris Duarte. In theory. Now, hopefully Devin Carter is a lot better than Chris Duarte, and it's a first round pick. I get it, man, but it's hard watching these young men from Sacramento cook. It's hard watching Dalton Connect cook. It's a little frustrating, but the Kings, to me, Matt, this has been a topic of conversation. It's subjective, looking at it from multiple perspectives. You've got the boogeyman from last year, who beat you 6 times. And this year, we're 25 games into the season. They've won 5. And so you've got a 5-20 team here in New Orleans tonight. And my argument has been, I think Kenny's argument is you can lose this game and, win 4 of the next 5 of the next 6, that's 100% accurate. There's enough games left in the season for that to happen. My argument has been, Matt, what happens if the Kings lose tonight, it resets all of the good vibes that Kings fans have. It resets. We go back to that, man, I don't think this team is very good type of thing. We go back to looking at, BrooklynNetsWire.com to see if we can find out what the latest trade chatter is on Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith. And it feels like, Matt, 5 days off or whatever it's been, 4 days off. The Kings need to find a way to win this game against a bad team tonight.
This game is terrifying. It's terrifying because forget a trap game or scheduled law or whatever. Who cares? You don't think the New Orleans Pelicans are looking at this game tonight going, man, things have not been going our way, but here's an opportunity for a get right. We've had some days off.
Their ass.
We have some days off. We're on our home court. We know we own this team. Let's go out and do it. You don't think the Pelicans are thinking that with this game? I mean, I know the players are. Maybe the organization is going tank, 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 tank. But the players are going, we can beat their ass and we're going to try to do it again.
Yeah.
So I think that, this game is absolutely terrifying. And I'm 100% in agreement with you. It's like, I think the panic button is pressed sometimes too liberally. But this is one of those losses that goes, oh, turns out the Kings are exactly who we were afraid they are. Like if they lose this game, even if mathematically they have all the chances in the world, it's like, yo, you're just doing the same thing over and over again, man. You have to go and get this. All momentum you feel like you're building for yourself just comes crumbling down with a loss tonight. Because to me, a loss tonight has nothing to do with talent, has nothing to do with, I mean, I know shot making is something you can't necessarily control, and maybe the Pelicans shoot 1,000,000,000% from three tonight. I hope that doesn't happen, but we've seen it before. But if the Kings attack this game with the mindset that they should have, they're not losing. They're too talented. The Pelicans are too beat up. Plus, the Kings should absolutely have a chip on their shoulder from losing to this team 6 times. The Kings should attack this game with the mindset of if we lose or if we don't win by 15 plus, we're disappointed. The Kings should dominate this game. That's the reality of it. And I know it's maybe not fair to the Pelicans, but what was so important, I feel, about that Utah Jazz game, because so many people went, Matt, why are you gassing this game up, this win up so much? It's the Utah Jazz. To me, that everything about that game was about the Kings, and the Kings have been their own worst enemy this season. Their inconsistencies, their inability to pay attention to the details, focus on the details, possession after possession after possession, like Mike Brown talks about. The Kings, self-inflicted wounds, missing shots, whatever it is, the Kings have been in their own way. Losing to the Pelicans tonight is the Kings losing to themselves again. If the Kings play to the level that they're capable of playing, they will beat the New Orleans Pelicans. So that to me is what tonight's about.
Before we get out of here, we talked a lot about, the others, as Shaq would say. How do you feel about DeRozan, Fox, Sabonis, and how they've played of late? Is there more that you want from any of those guys, or are they kind of doing their job and it's time for the others to kind of step up?
I think they're doing their job in the sense that they're doing an ultimately better job of coexisting. And they've implemented Malik Monk pretty seamlessly. And Malik has the ball in his hands a lot. Like, pay attention to how many times they're playing Fox off ball now. Like, and I think De'Aaron kind of enjoys that to some extent. There's part of me that wants to go, all right, I want to see another 40 bomb from De'Aaron or that kind of performance where it's like it's De'Aaron takeover mode. But if all 4 guys are cooking or touching the ball or moving the ball the way that in theory they're supposed to, and those opportunities are being shared, Fox doesn't have to do that. DeRozan doesn't have to do that. Domas doesn't have to do that. But what we're seeing consistently is, I don't know about you guys, like I've looked at a box score in the third quarter or fourth quarter of a game that's been, I feel, going pretty well, and look down and going, oh, all 3 are in 20s. Oh, Domas is leading scoring tonight. Oh, DeMar's leading the scoring tonight. Oh, Malik's leading the scoring tonight. Like, that's what this team probably should be, or more often than not will be, is all 4 of them are having a clear impact on the game. Not any one of the 4 of them are taking over. If they are, it's marginal. And then you look at the box score and you're like, okay, all 4 of them have made a noticeable impact. And then if one of them's struggling, if Fox has a bad night shooting the basketball, okay, DeMar steps up a little bit more, Malik steps up a little bit more, maybe Keegan gives you a little bit more that night because somebody's going to struggle. But this team very much, it's like, when it rains, it pours with this team. When the Kings are hitting shots, everybody gets involved. And as we've seen, when the Kings are missing shots, boy, it's like a frozen tundra. Nobody can get going. So it's interesting how this group plays so much off of each other.
So in the end, what you think? They get it tonight?
Oh, yes. Yeah, the Kings win tonight. Like, it's just, brain cannot accept anything less. And God bless the Locked On Kings podcast tonight and my job security if they don't, because I don't know how you can even stomach the possibility of a loss tonight. And I don't know what you could possibly say. Like if the Kings were to lose tonight and Mike takes the podium and he goes, "Hey, credit to the New Orleans Pelicans how they played, and we just got to do," like, shut the hell up, Mike. Like, and I love Mike, but someone get pissed off. Someone say this isn't acceptable. This isn't okay. That's the only, like, there's just no scenario where the Kings lose tonight and you're just like, good fight, battled hard. That sucks. Like, if you have a Dame Lillard moment where CJ McCollum or whoever, DeJounte Murray hits a half-court shot to beat you, you're not going, darn. You're like, why the hell were you in that position in the first place?
Gotta give credit to the Pelicans. They just beat our ass tonight, and my guys have to play better consistently.
Whose voice is
that?
And they do possession after possession.
Oh, don't do
after
this.
possession.
Don't do this. This is terrible.
Possession.
Stop it. That's awful.
It's his
That
Jerry
is
Jones.
awful. You owe us
Jerry
all an
Jones with a
apology.
rasp. That's his Jerry
That is
Jones with a
awful.
deeper octave. You just turned it
My
down.
guys have to
Will
play
you
better.
do something about this?
Congratulations to the Pelicans. They just beat our
That's
ass
awful.
tonight.
I know
If you want to do a Mike Brown, and I won't because reasons, but if you want to do a Mike Brown, you have to make sure to cough or clear your throat into the mic too.
The Kings need a pep talk from the Ultimate Warrior.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Tonight in New Orleans, the Kings need to rectify all the momentum that they've had when Michael Parsons walked off the field.
Well, at least you kept that one short. My goodness. That Mike Brown impression is the worst.
We got a
thing
minute
I've
left. How
ever
many
heard.
more impressions you got?
No,
Damien,
no more.
I don't know why you keep saying that, because this was a good Mike Brown impression.
No, that is.
My guys really are out here trying to do what they can, but we have to understand
Jesse,
how we have to move the ball.
Jesse, you're gonna get Jesse do something about this. Come on, I work with a bunch of children, bunch of jackasses. Come on, Jesse, where's my juice? I didn't work hard. I didn't do enough for this. See my diamond necklace? You know how much this is worth? It's. I sold some of the tile in my kitchen to get this.
Spade knows.
You
Spade
guys-
knows. You just gotta hear the Mike Brown a little bit more. You gotta hear it.
No, I don't. Like, it's bad. Both of you are jerks for all of this. First of all,
I thought it was great.
you know what? I'm leaving. You guys can do what the hell you want
The
to.
brown pickup truck.
I'm out of here.
I'm gonna
You
go to my
like
new
him.
car. My other one is in the garage. I can see Sacramento from my house where I walk. I can see that from my house. I see downtown. I can see the beam up in the mountains, up in the hills.
In the mountains.
ESPN 1320.
Vamos Kings, vamos 49ers.